On today's show, a big week for the Cavs. They take on the Orlando Magic and their fourth and final matchup of the season against the Boston Celtics. I'm joined by Philip Rossman-Reich and John Karalis to preview those matchups on this whip-around edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Cleveland Cavaliers remain in first place in the Eastern Conference, 47-10. They have a 6-game lead over the Boston Celtics, who are in second place. They will see Boston, of course, later on this week on Friday night in Boston. But before that, they will take on the Orlando Magic for the second of 3 meetings this year in Orlando. The Cavs, of course, won that first matchup like the second or third week of the season. Very early on, this Magic team, of course, has struggled. They're sitting at 29-30 after their game on Sunday. And, of course, Boston is second in the East at 41-16 so far on the season. So talked with Philip Rossman-Reich, who does a great job over at Locked On Magic. We talked about what's gone wrong really for Orlando this season, kind of what they can do to maybe turn things around if they can get a little bit healthier. And then, of course, later in the show, friend of the show, John Karalis, stops by. We had a really nice conversation about what really has changed for the Boston Celtics, because I think they were screwing around for a good chunk of the season, and they look like a team that is locked in, and that should make for Friday night's matchup a very, very interesting one. Before I get to Philip Rossman-Reich, I need to remind you about the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. But here's my conversation with Philip Rossman-Reich. And welcome back to the Locked On Cavs Whip Around. Philip Rossman-Reich does a great job covering the Orlando Magic down at Locked On Magic. And it has not been, I think, the season that you or anybody envisioned for the Orlando Magic. They have not been able to stay healthy with Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner missing significant chunks of the season with oblique injuries. And we, after what was a really good season for the Magic last year and what I thought was a good showing in the postseason in the first round against the Cavs, they've taken a step back. So let's start with, how have they ended up, aside from the injuries to those two guys I mentioned, how have they found themselves as a team that is right now staring at having to get through the play-in tournament?
Yeah, I mean, the injuries are the story. I mean, there's just no getting around it. You know, Paolo Banchero misses 2 months. Franz Wagner misses 6 weeks, about 20 games. Jalen Suggs has now been out for 21 of the past 22 games. He's played in 1 game since January 3rd. It's hard to sustain anything when your 3 best players aren't available and haven't been available together. The trio of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, essentially the trio the Magic have kind of staked this rebuild on and built this team around, have played a total of 97 minutes over 6 games this season. And they're +8 net rating in those 97 minutes. So it's like, some of it is like they understand that this thing does work, but they just haven't been able to sustain the excellence without your best players. And I think that's understandable. And, you know, Paolo's been back since January 10th. Franz Wagner came back about a week later. They've needed some time to get their rhythm back. And so it's been, even with those two back in the lineup, the Magic have continued to struggle. They look like players who are essentially in preseason going up against teams that have been in midseason form, and the Magic just haven't been able to find the same spark that helped them make the playoffs last year and helped carry them through the beginning of the season.
So one of the issues, they've been great defensively, even with all the injuries, which I do think is a very impressive thing, because I think it's tough to be good on that end of the floor without continuity, and they very clearly have not had that because, as you mentioned, so many guys in and out of the lineup. But offensively has been kind of the opposite, where they are near the bottom of the league in offensive rating. It's just a big struggle for them to score points consistently. Do you think that is something that we'll see get better as we get closer to the season, as they do maybe find some of that consistency with guys being on the floor more frequently?
Yeah, I think it is something that will get better, but look, it's only going to get marginally better. The Magic last year, I think, were 23rd in the league in offensive rating, and they're able to sustain it because their defense is so good. And I think what we've seen over the last 2 weeks maybe is the Magic's defense start to go from merely good to very good again. And that's given them some chances to win. It's just this weird stat. Orlando, I think, is third overall in defensive rating. Since Jalen Suggs' injury on January 3rd, they're 10th in defensive rating. And just that slip from 3rd to 10th, from like 108 to 112 points allowed per 100 possessions, has been like the world of difference of the Magic are competitive to the Magic just can't compete with anybody. And so the Magic, I think, have been real focused on getting their defense right first and trying to find ways to use their defense to generate offense, because the half-court offense just isn't going to be there consistently. And the shooting is just abysmal. I'm sure we'll get into it, but the Magic they're the worst three-point shooting team this league has seen in more than a decade. I believe the stat is they've shot the lowest three-point field goal percentage of any team that shot at least 23-point attempts per game. It's just been an endemic thing. Everybody's feeling it. Players that you would expect to be good and quality shooters and have been good quality shooters throughout their career just aren't hitting threes, even though the Magic gets some pretty good looks. It's been just a slog to just get anything in the basket. And it's tough to sustain even good defense and great defense when you just can't score.
Right. And to your point there, the Magic are last in 3-point shooting percentage by nearly a full 3 percentage points, which is, that doesn't sound huge, but that is a pretty massive difference. Like, it's the same difference between the 29th place team in Washington and the 16th place team in 3-point percentage in Detroit. Like, that's how big the gap is between second last and last. They also make the fewest threes per game. So it's not as if the volume is a super high thing for them either.
And they increased the volume from last year. Like last year,
right,
they were 29th in the league in 3-point attempts. They took like the fewest 3-point attempts in the league, and they're at least like 23rd, 24th in percentage. And we were like, okay, just get the volume up. Even if the percentage drops a little bit, it'll be okay. Like, the Magic, I think, lately have started to like just ignore volume completely. They're back down to like, they were shooting like high 30s for a good chunk of the season. Now they're shooting like 31, 32 threes. If you get them shooting threes, they're just not going to make enough to keep up. And it's really just become about math problems and figuring out how do we just stay around where you're at and prevent you from getting threes too.
Right. How come they haven't been able to figure out this math problem? Because, they added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope this past offseason. Obviously, they did not make any moves at the trade deadline, which was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about as to why this team didn't feel the need to go out and try and add something. But how come they haven't been able to figure out that end of the floor as far as the 3-point shooting goes?
I mean, that's the great mystery, because this Magic team has not been a good 3-point shooting team since Dwight Howard was here. I mean, it's just been there. It's been.
Oh, we remember.
I know you guys remember. But like, it's like a curse now. It's just like the Magic have been bottom 10 in offensive rating every year since Dwight left in 2012. It's been this intractable problem. And, they signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's been a 40% 3-point shooter in 3 of the last 4 years. The year that he wasn't, he shot 39%. He's a career 38% 3-point shooter. They signed someone who they thought was going to be that reliable shooter, even if he wasn't a volume shooter, even if he was only taking 3 or 4 threes per game. They're expecting leaps from Jalen Suggs. They're expecting Franz Wagner to bounce back from a bad 3-point shooting season. They're expecting Paolo Banchero to take a step up. They're expecting a lot of internal development, and it just didn't happen. Almost immediately, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope went through a slump and never really got himself back out. Jalen Suggs had a really nice start from 3. I think he's like a 38, near 40% catch and shoot 3-point shooter. But all of his catch and shoot 3-pointers went away when Paolo got hurt. Franz had to start taking more 3-pointers off the dribble. And so just, Wendell Carter had the plantar fascia issue, knee issue early in the year. So he kind of lost his early season rhythm. as a potential three-point shooter. And look, he's a center. You're not expecting him to take, 5-6 threes a game, but he's there to be a little bit more of a floor spacer. It just, everybody just, knock him down the row, just had these career worst slumps. And I think, again, it's just, it's like a virus. It's just like hit everybody at the same time. And now they're all feeling it. And it's just, everyone's pressing about it because they know how much they're struggling with it.
Yeah, if you pull up the basketball reference page for the Orlando Magic, nobody is shooting better than 36% from three, which is Mo Wagner, who has a knee injury that has kept him out for the year after playing 30 games. So I wouldn't like, this is not safe for work stuff if you like offense. It is really, really bad stuff. Let's go to the standings.
The Magic's goal is to drag you into the mud, get you real dirty, and keep you down. That is the goal of every game. If you, like, everybody who says, I wish basketball were like it was in the 90s, the Magic are your team.
Yeah, I could not have said that better. Let's go into the standings. Orlando, as we record this, they're 28-30. They have 24 games left. Sunday night, they play Washington. So as you listen to this, they will not be 28-30. They will have 23 games left, but they are firmly in the play-in picture. They're 3 games behind Detroit, who's in 6th. They're tied with Miami, who is in 8th. What is the recipe for them to find their way out of the play-in the remaining 23 games?
I mean, they got to catch a rhythm, and they gotta find some wins, find some confidence, and that right now they're in the middle of a 7-game homestand. They started a 7-game homestand against Memphis on Friday, a tough loss there, a 1-point loss where the Magic had it, kind of lost the lead late, and Memphis is a good team. I don't think there's any shame in losing to them, but a really frustrating way to lose with a timeout that wasn't called and all that jazz. The recipe is they've got to find their rhythm. I would say. Franz Wagner has been excellent since coming back from injury. He really didn't feel like he missed a beat. He's averaging, I think, 26, 27 points per game since returning from injury. Paolo's taken some time. He really lost his rhythm. His decision-making was really kind of slow. He was struggling to take good shots and find his shots and find kind of his range again. Over the last week, certainly since the All-Star break, the 2 games since the All-Star break as we're recording this, he's looked a lot more comfortable, a lot quicker with his decision-making, and a lot more effective. So, the whole story this season is the Magic have been without their best players. Cavs fans know this from last year. You play without Darius Garland, you play without Evan Mobley. Yeah, you still have Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen, 2 all-star level players, that you could feel that you're missing something. And you feel that, and it's harder to fill in for those top guys. If you're missing a Max Strus or a George Niang or whoever else it was on the roster at the time, you can fill in for those guys. You can their roles can be kind of split apart and other players can step up. The Magic's biggest issue all year is they've been without their best guys, and they don't know reliably where their offense is going to come from, where their creation is going to come from. And for the last 2-3 weeks, Paolo and Franz have needed reps just to get back into rhythm, and that can be rough sometimes. You're kind of letting them make mistakes in real time. Against quality opponents, against NBA teams. It does feel like Paolo and Franz are starting to kind of find their footing again, and the Magic are starting to look more and more like they did at least in December, when they weren't scoring, but they were winning, and they were just kind of out hustling and out working players. At some point, Jalen Suggs is going to come back. He'll need some time to kind of get back into his rhythm, but that'll only elevate the energy of the team and kind of give them another boost as well. So it feels like, I think you were mentioning the trade deadline a little bit earlier. The Magic want to see this team healthy. They want to see what they're supposed to look like and what they're supposed to be. They just haven't seen that enough. And so I think just the general thing is everyone around the league recognizes Orlando is a better team than their record. But they haven't been able to get the pieces and players together long enough to play at that level. And so that's, I think, what the Magic need to see here in the last 23 games in the last month and a half of the season. And hopefully that's enough to help them climb closer to Detroit, separate themselves and win the division, and give themselves a good place to start as they enter the postseason and the play-in tournament.
Yes, winning the division, something that everybody in the NBA always thinks about. But I pulled up FanDuel Sunday morning to see them. Like, the Orlando Magic are favored to win the Southeast Division. Like, it's incredible.
You say that, but that's why the Magic were the 5 seed last year. They tied Indiana and Philadelphia And that tiebreaker was critical. So, obviously they're competing with two other teams in their division for 7, 8, and 9. But like if Detroit falters at all and it becomes another tight race there, that's the trump card. That beats everything. Even, Orlando won the season series with Detroit anyway, but if it's a tie between Detroit, Orlando, Miami, and Orlando's a division winner, and Orlando wins that tiebreaker with Miami, which they're currently on track to do, they tied the season series 2-2. That gets you 6. That helps you avoid the play-in, and I think that's ultimately the goal at this point. Just get to the playoffs no matter what, but avoid that play-in and don't risk losing that spot.
Yeah, they could be in the play-in, they could be out of the play-in, but Tuesday will be the second of 3 matchups between the Cavs and the Orlando Magic, and it could be a postseason preview. But Phil, thanks so much for doing this, man. Very much appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. Because they swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When a player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. That's a nice little 12-hour window for you to save. Maybe you stayed up late watching this game, right, where someone scores 50 points. Maybe it's a West Coast game. You're in Cleveland or somewhere else in the East Coast, and you're like, man, I could not take my eyes off that game. So you wake up, you go to work. Oh my goodness, I didn't have time to pack a lunch. What am I going to do? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to sign up for Dash Pass, and then you're going to get 50% off an order, up to $10 off that next day. It's not only going to be satisfying for your stomach because you're going to get some really good food, but it's also going to be satisfying for your wallet because you're going to save money, and satisfying for your eyes because you got to stay up and watch a guy drop 50 the night before. So everybody wins when you do this. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When a player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. And back on Locked On Cavs for the 4th time this year, the great John Karalis does a great job over at Locked On Celtics, and the Cavs and Celtics scoring off on Friday night for the 4th and final time of the regular season. Who knows? Maybe they'll play 7 more times in the month of May. That is yet to be determined. But John, Boston's been playing great basketball from afar. It seems as if they have stopped screwing around during the regular season, which I think was a big part of why they didn't look like a championship caliber team for a little bit of a stretch there, but they look great again. What's been the big difference?
It's basically what you said. They had a lot of things that came together at the same time. Getting Kristaps Porzingis back, it was a little bit of a challenge. I kind of compared it to getting like a joint replacement where it might look like you forget how to walk, but you just got to like retrain yourself of how to do this stuff. And like, it looked like the Celtics forgot how to play basketball for a little bit, but they just had to retrain themselves of how to play with Kristaps back. And, Derek White went cold at the same time. And he's talked a lot about how he had a stretch where he just wasn't enjoying basketball. And now that that's back, he's playing a lot better. And I think everything's just kind of coming together. The Celtics in general, decided to play harder, to play more consistent defense, and that's leading to better things across the board. So they're I think they're past the coasting part of the schedule, and now they know they've got less than a third of the schedule left. This is training camp is over. This is their chance to kind of ramp up, I guess would be the term, and start getting ready for a playoff run.
How important do you think they view the end of the regular season? Because both the Cavs and the Celtics have 25 games left. Obviously, Boston has been there, done that. So I think they know how to manage this a little bit better than a Cavs team that this core has not been past the second round. But how important is it to Boston to be playing their best basketball as the regular season closes?
I mean, I think that's just important for everybody. So they, I think, are going to be in a position, like, we look at the standings. I know it's something you wanted to get to. Like, I don't think the Celtics have cared much about where they end up in the standings. I think they understand where they are. They're not going to jeopardize their plan, whatever it is, for ramping up minutes and being prepared in a kind of like half-cocked run for the top seed. So they're going to manage these games where I think there might be some strategic rest for some of these guys, and the games that they play will be, big minute, high level, high effort. But I think if you lay out, hey, Jason, you're going to need to take at least a couple of these games off. Jalen, you're going to take a couple of these, Porzingis, Al Horford, all those guys, and try to get the right mix of players playing. Like, for example, the Celtics have a Toronto and Detroit back-to-back. Well, get a bunch of these guys playing in Toronto and then get some of those guys who sat out to play against Detroit. And you have the right mix of guys. And if they all play hard, you should beat those two teams. I think that's going to be kind of how they go. And then on a game like Friday against the Cavs, everybody's ready to play. And that's going to be a big, high effort, everybody plays game. And I think they're just going to try to manage that throughout the course. They have a big homestand coming up, so it'll be a little bit easier to do that. And they just want to make sure that everybody is ready, their legs are ready, and they're kind of as crisp as they need to be heading into the playoffs.
So you mentioned the standings, and I do want to get to that, but I do want to dive into Friday's matchup first a little bit, because this is it's the first matchup post trade deadline. The Celtics have beaten the Cavs 2 out of the 3 games so far, but this is a Cavs team that looks fundamentally a little bit different than it did. I know I'm sure there are some Boston Celtics fans that were happy to see the Cavs make that trade, because it meant Karis LeVert's not going to be able to potentially terrorize the Boston Celtics anymore in a Cavs uniform, something that he had done previously. But do you put any more stock, or do you think the Celtics even put any more stock in this matchup because the Cavs have a different looking team, particularly on the wing with the addition of DeAndre Hunter?
It's kind of funny because it was one of the lines of questioning after the win over New York was, you got teams out there that are very clearly making moves to face you, right. And so what does that do for you? Is motivation? And Jaylen Brown's like, yeah, it gives me a little extra motivation. And, Jason Tatum said, like, this is part of the responsibility of being the champs. Whoever the champ is, the competition is gearing up to beat that team that following season. And so that's why the Knicks made the moves that they did. And that's why the Cavs made the in-season moves that they did. Why would a team that's on a pace to win nearly 70 games make, not insignificant moves to bolster a certain position? Because even though the Cavs have won a lot of regular season games, they know you have to get through Boston to get to where you want to go. So, yeah, I think the Celtics will look at that matchup, and there might be a motivation to say, hey, that's cute, but this is who we are, and we're gonna show you a little bit about who we really are. And I think Friday night game, your big audience, always want to show out against the competition, especially a number 1 seed when you feel like you're the better team, but you're not the better seed. I'm sure the Celtics are going to want to send some sort of message.
Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action, well, it's just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. Plus, if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. FanDuel's live betting feature keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three like, I don't know, Evan Mobley did on Sunday. You never have to feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And when you win, because I do want you to win, you get paid instantly. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com to join today for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Just got to win that first $5 bet. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you hit on that first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Right. And I do think in the three matchups that have taken place so far this year, I think the environment and the intensity of those three games, both the one in Boston and the two that have been in Cleveland, have been really high level stuff. Like, I think they have felt like playoff atmospheres. And, you can say maybe it was because it was the NBA Cup all the way back in November in Boston. But it was not that the Cavs were 15-0. It was the NBA Cup, John. That's what that was for.
All about the cup.
But I do wonder if this one maybe feels a little bit more, instead of like a first or second round game, which I think is probably fair to say those games felt like, if this feels like potentially an Eastern Conference Finals type environment in Boston. Like, that is one of the things I'm very interested to feel Friday night when the ball goes up in the air.
The crowd will be feeling that. The crowd will feel that way. And the Celtics is going to be interesting because the Celtics will play hard. There's no doubt about that. They may have things up their sleeve that they're not going to reveal until playoff time comes around. They may, who knows what kind of curveballs Joe Mazzulla is cooking up. Maybe he tries to throw something that he won't use just to kind of confuse people. I just feel like the Celtics are going to do what we know that they normally do, which is they're going to attack Darius Garland. They're going to try to make Evan Mobley beat you with 2-pointers, and the Celtics are going to put up 55 3-pointers, right? That's what they're going to do. And they're going to dare you to beat them. And I do think as much as they'll say after the game that there was no message, they definitely want the Cavs to feel shaken. It's up to the Cavs to not be shaken by it, right? And that's your seeding be damned. The Celtics are the champs. The Cavs want what the Celtics have. And if the situation was reversed, I'd think the same thing, where the champs are going to want to go out there and be like, this is why we're the champs. And if they are able to do that, just like they did to the New York Knicks, then the Knicks go home and be like, damn. Okay. And you want as the Celtics for the Cavs to go home and be like, damn, because if the Celtics can win and win convincingly, then they can sit there and be like, it took one perfect, insane 20-point quarter from Donovan Mitchell to beat the Celtics. And the Celtics have owned basically everything else. And if the Celtics can come out of that game on Friday thinking that, and the Cavs can think that, that's just a little psychological advantage. And I tell you, Joe Mazzulla loves psychological advantages in a playoff series.
I've picked up on that. I think that he's a little bit different, but I've picked up on that from afar. And I'm sure he's picked up a little bit more than me being in person. So we've danced around the seeding aspect of this, but as we record this, the Cavs have a 6-game lead in the Eastern Conference standings. The Cavs are 47-10. The Celtics are 41-16 on the season. Both teams have 25 games left to play. Do the Celtics, one, care about getting the 1 seed, and two, have they given up on that? Because I just, from where I sit, I'm not sure the Cavs are going to lose 6 more regular season games. Yeah. And even if they do, I just don't know that Boston's going to be able to sprint through the finish line as fast as they probably would need to make up any of that ground.
I don't think, first of all, I don't think the Celtics care. They're very comfortable. They're very comfortable on the road. So that's not an issue. They don't care if they play the first 2, the first 4, or all 7 games in Cleveland. Like they feel confident, right? And that they should. And it's not a disrespect to the Cavaliers. It's just the Celtics feel confident they can win anywhere. So they won't. And you can do the math. 25 games to make up 6 requires The Cavs got to lose 6 more than Boston. Boston's got to be perfect, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I'm sure Celtics ownership group to get a couple extra home games would be like, hey guys, we're pretty expensive. We'd like to have a couple more home gates if you can. But that's not like, I think that ship has sailed, and everybody's understanding that's not how it's gonna shake out. If the Cavs stumble somewhere along the way here, and the Celtics can win on Friday, and it becomes 4 or something like that, like maybe. But there's a couple of these games that the Cavs have won that you're like, oh man, like if the Knicks had beaten the Cavs, and if the Grizzlies had beaten the Cavs, and you're like, okay, now there's an outside chance you win that game Friday, you pick up a full game there, you can maybe focus on it, but at this point it doesn't even matter. So I don't think the Celtics care. I don't think they're going to make any particular run for it. They're just going to be like, we are where we are. The season's gone how it's gone, and we'll accept it. And if you have to start game 1 on the road of the Eastern Conference Finals in Cleveland, so be it.
So the Celtics, as you mentioned, feel like they can win anywhere, and they've been really good on the road, not just this year, but in previous years. To date, this year, they're 23-6 away from TD Garden. Why have they been so successful away from Boston?
I think it's like they come together, I think, on the road. I think when you're at home, it's very easy and they had a long kind of stretch of the weird schedule with the NBA Cup and with the preseason trip to Abu Dhabi. They kind of like had a lot of home games, and I think they got a little too comfortable. You go to the gym, you have your practices, you see everybody, and then everybody scatters. The road has been their opportunity to kind of come together and be together and get that chemistry back. And I think they've actually come to thrive on that, like that, not adversity, but just that feeling of, okay, we're actually a basketball team. We're actually like here to do something. We're all friends, and we're not all scattering afterwards. I think the home has been a little too comfortable for them, which is why they had struggled. Like all of their struggles in that stretch was like a lot of home losses, which is weird. So, yeah, I just feel like they've taken advantage of the opportunity to come together on the road. I think for the past few years, they've really, really focused. They understand that winning on the road is where you really prove what you're about. And there's something about the hostile environments that, as a player, you're just like, it's a lot of fun to shut up a home crowd on the road. Like the home crowd's supposed to cheer for you. You almost come to expect it. Like when you're struggling, you're like, okay, guys, come pick us up because we're kind of lagging here, and we want those "Let's Go Celtics" cheer. On the road, it's like everybody is rooting against you, and when you can silence a crowd, there's no better feeling. So there's some of that going on as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think sometimes athletes actually enjoy the silence of a road arena a little bit more.
Man,
and they will never admit this because every city's fans have the best fans in the league, as we know. That's what the players all say. But yeah. I think that there are players that enjoy the silence of a road arena more than the cheers of a home arena. But John, very excited to see what Friday night brings in the 4th and final regular season matchup between these two teams. And hey, maybe we'll be doing this again in May.
Let's hope.
Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, before we get out of here, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I will be back tomorrow talking about the trends for the Cleveland Cavaliers and why things are in the right direction.